What is up guys, welcome back to the channel. This is Dr. Hamstang and today we'll be doing a full comparison video over here between three very interesting phones. In the first corner here we have the POCO F5 and it's going up against the OnePlus 11 over here, and one of my favorite phones in 2023 so far, the Galaxy S23 Ultra. And in today's video what we're going to do is of course go through the key specs and features on three of these phones over here, and the reason why I chose three of them because I think they are the best in their price range over here. And of course, if we are going to move from one to another, we're going to see any things that you're going to miss out or some of the similarities that we have on three of these phones. So yes, I do hope by the end of this video I will help you to make your purchase decision. So yes, without further ado, let's just get right into it. So first things first, let's of course start off with the prices on three of these phones, and I will also include the USD prices as well. So the POCO F5 does start off at 1699 ringgit Malaysia for the base model, and if you want to get the higher spec model, it goes for 1799 ringgit Malaysia. Going on to the OnePlus 11, it does start off at 3299 ringgit Malaysia, and of course if you want to go for the higher spec model, it does go for 3599 ringgit Malaysia. Finally, over here we have the Galaxy S23 Ultra, and this start off at 5699 ringgit Malaysia for the base model. If you get the highest spec model, the 512, it does go for about 6199 ringgit Malaysia. And of course, you can go all crazy, it does go up all the way to 7199 ringgit Malaysia. Next thing I want to talk about here is the fact that if you buy the POCO F5, you do have a case right off the box and a charger. You do only get a charger with the OnePlus 11, and with the S23 Ultra, you are only given a cable. So that is of course something to keep in mind. Now we're going to talk about the build and design on all three of these phones. So starting here with the POCO F5, that of course being the cheapest of the three of these phones here over here. It does use a glass 5 only on the front, but it does use a plastic on the back and also on the sides. Going on to the OnePlus 11, it uses a glass Victus on the front, a glass 5 on the back, and aluminium frames on the sides. Of course, going on to the S23 Ultra, it's using the best material of course. Going to glass Victus 2 on the front and also on the back, and aluminium frames on the sides. Going on to the design over here, as we can see, we have a glossy kind of design here, which would attract a lot of fingerprints on both of these two phones here. So in case if you guys are not going to use a case on this, that is something to keep in mind. This one does have a nice matte finish color to it, so definitely in terms of fingerprints, not very apparent on this. In terms of camera layout, as we can see here, I do like these two here because it does give you a more distinguishable design layout. This one is more generic and more plain, more basic. And of course, if we go on to the button layout, we have the power button and also the fingerprint scanner on one side, the volume rocker on the top and corner. On the bottom here, we do have the stereo speaker setup, USB-C for charging. And if you go on to the top, this is where I think it gets pretty interesting because we do have a headphone jack on the top and also your stereo speakers, and there's no buttons on the sides here. And now let's go on to the OnePlus 11. You do have the what is returned the switch here for the OnePlus, and we have the power button, the volume rockers on the other side. We do have the USB-C for charging your stereo speaker setup and also your SIM card tray slot. Nothing much on the top. And going on to the S23 Ultra, your power button and volume rocker is on one side as well. On the bottom, you have your stylus here, which of course is one of the main differentiating factor when it comes to the S23 Ultra. We do have your stereo speaker setup and also USB-C for your fast charging. Nothing on the other side as well. Talking about the weight, definitely these two phones are more weighty. Of course, the S23 Ultra taking that part over here, being the heaviest phone of the bunch, but it does have a very good grip to them. All three of them very nice grip. Of course, both of these two phones, they do have a more squared off edges on the sides. This one does have a more curve on the OnePlus 11, but to be honest, very comfortable and nice to hold on all three of these phones. Alright, so now we're going to talk about the displays on all three of these phones. So in terms of similarities here, all three of them do use an AMOLED panel. They do have your 120Hz refresh rate, your Dolby Vision, and all that good stuff. But in terms of peak brightness over here, 1750 on the S23 Ultra, 1300 on the OnePlus 11, and 1000 on the POCO F5. Of course, if we talk about the sizes here, 6.8 inch, 6.7, and of course 6.67 inch. And in terms of the pixelation resolution and all that HD goodness. This one can go up to Quad HD Plus, similar as well to the OnePlus 11, but with the POCO F5 can only go up to HD Plus settings. Other than that, I would say that the display on 3 of them really looks really nice. Of course, if you just use them individually, you can't really tell the difference between a very good display or a bad display. But if you're comparing 3 of them over here, definitely these two phones are really good when it comes to displaying. Colors do look more vibrant, more colorful, sharper, and the brightness definitely does help a lot, especially when you're here in sunny Malaysia. But definitely I'll give the edge to the S23 Ultra. It does make one of the best displays there is out there, and definitely there isn't any competition to it. But both of these two phones, again, they are still giving you very good AMOLED displays.
Alright, let's do this. Alright, let's do this. Alright, let's do this.
Alright, so as we can hear from that, I would say definitely the S23 Ultra does have the better speakers compared to the other two phones. The OnePlus 11 in second, of course, with the POCO F5 at the bottom when it comes to the stereo speakers. Next thing I want to talk about here is, of course, the face and fingerprint unlock. So with the POCO F5, it's located at the side, so it's very sensitive. All you need to do is just gently tap on the sides and it gets the job done. And for the face unlock as well, it gets it very fast and snappy, I would say. Going on to the OnePlus 11, again, very similar. It does have an optical scanner on the bottom. So what you do is just point it on the bottom and it will get the job done. Boom, you're right in. And face unlock here, boom, you're right in. One more time, boom, you're right in. And going on to the S22 Ultra, it uses an ultrasonic scanner. Works very sensitive, I would say. And in terms of the face unlock, not the fastest compared to the other two phones, but it still gets the job done and it's still very convenient when it comes to face and fingerprint. One thing to note is that this phone here, the F5, does come with an official IP53 rating, the IP64 on the OnePlus 11, and an IP68 rating on the S23 Ultra. Alright, so next thing here we want to talk about is the internal specs on this phone. So of course with the OnePlus 11 and S23 Ultra, it does come with the latest Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 processor, whereas with the POCO F5, it does come with a very new chipset over here, the 7 Plus Gen 2 processor. So in terms of speed, in terms of the smoothness, all 3 of these phones are really amazing, very fast, very snappy. To be honest, you're not gonna notice a major difference when you're using in terms of speed when it comes to 3 of these phones. And if you want to talk about the RAM over here, this one can go up to 8 or 12 gigs RAM. This one 8 all the way to 16 gigs depending on where you're from, as well with the S23 Ultra. DDR5 with 5 at DDR5X on the OnePlus 11 and S23 Ultra. And of course, if you want to talk about the storage over here, this one does come with either 128 or 256. Again, in some regions, you might get 512. This comes with UFS 3.1. Both of these two phones come with UFS 4 storage up to 512 gigs, whereas on the S23 Ultra, it can go up all the way to 1 terabyte of storage. So yes, very amazing specs on 3 of these phones. And of course, if you want to talk about the software side of things, all of them does come with Android 13 on top of their software. This one does come with the One UI 5 software. This one comes with Oxygen OS 13 and of course MIUI version 14. To be honest, when it comes to software experience, I do prefer these two compared to Xiaomi software in general. Yes, a lot of them do give you a lot of customizations, a lot of changes over here and there. but I do like the simplicity that comes with these two phones. To be honest, this one definitely does take the cake. It does give you a lot more options, especially when I'm using a lot of digital creating. I do prefer it on the S23 Ultra, second to the OnePlus, because it still does get the job done. Pretty slick and steady, I would say. Yes, it's losing its identity in terms of the OnePlus software, but it is still very nice to use. But with the Xiaomi software, it does get a lot of getting used to it. I did like the 13 version better compared to the 14. I felt that with the 14, they added too many stuff around it to make it kind of too clunky and too chunky when it comes to the software. So yeah, software experience I would give to both of these two phones. Also, one more thing to note is when we talk about software, the S23 Ultra Samsung phones do give you about 5 years of software updates, similar again to the OnePlus 11, so you can use these phones for a very long period of time. With the POCO F5, there isn't really too much of news about it, but it can last you for about 3 years, which is still pretty decent if you look at the price. But of course, with that specs, it definitely can push on further. So next thing here we're going to talk about is the battery and charging on all three of these phones. So starting here with all three of them, they do give you a massive 5000 milliamps of battery over here, so it's able to give you 1 full day of usage. I would say that the S23 Ultra does have the better optimization overall, so it does give you about nice 7 to 8 hours of screen on time. Here's about 6 to 7 hours, very similar again to the POCO F5. But of course, when it comes to charging, this is where it kind of differentiates out. With the POCO F5, you are given a very nice 67 watt brick charger right off the box over here, so it's able to charge up from 0 all the way to 100% in just about 30 minutes. Going on to the OnePlus 11 over here, you're given a nice massive 100-watt wired charger over here. No wireless charger, but still very, very decent. Able to charge up from 0 all the way to 100% in just about 20 minutes. And of course, if you talk about the S23 Ultra, no charger right out of the box, which is very, very disappointing. It does support up to 45 watts of super fast charging 2.0, but it does give you your wireless charging and of course your reverse wireless charging as well. So it's more to convenience, whereas these two here is more to speed. Right, so last but not least, let us talk about the cameras on all three of these phones. So starting here with the selfie shooter, they are quite similar in terms of the numbers. With the OnePlus 11 and the POCO F5, it does give you a nice 16 megapixel f2.5 sensor, and it can record up to 1080p at 30 fps, whereas on the F5, it can go all the way to 60 fps. Whereas on the S23 Ultra, it does give you a smaller 12 megapixel f2.2 sensor, but it does have your dual pixel autofocus, and it can record up to 4K at 60 fps. Now let's switch on to the rear cameras on all three of these phones. Starting here with the POCO F5, it does come with a triple camera setup, starting with a 64 megapixel f1.8 sensor with dual autofocus and OIS. Going on to the second one here, the 8 megapixel f2.2 sensor, and it does give you the ultra wide lens with 120 degrees field of view. And lastly, we have the macro shooter over here, 2 megapixel f2.4 sensor, and this phone here can record up to 4K at 30 fps. Going on to the OnePlus 11, it does also give you a triple camera setup, going on with a 50 megapixel f1.8 sensor, and does give you the dual autofocus and OIS. And going on to the telephoto lens, it does give you a 32 megapixel f2.0 sensor with 2 times optical zoom and dual autofocus. And lastly, we have the 48 megapixel f2.2 sensor with 115 degrees field of view, and that is your ultra wide lens. Over here we have the beast, and that comes with the quad camera setup. Starting with the 200 megapixel f1.7 sensor, it does have your dual autofocus, laser autofocus and OIS. And going on to the telephoto lenses over here, the first one at 10 megapixel f4.9, it does have your dual autofocus, OIS and 10 times optical zoom. The second one as well, 10 megapixel f2.4 sensor with dual autofocus, OIS and 3 times optical zoom. And lastly, we do have the 12 megapixel ultra wide sensor with 120 degrees field of view, and it does have your dual autofocus. And this phone here can record up to 8K at 30 fps. Now let's check out some shots on all three of these phones and see which one does look better. Alright, so that is it with the three of these phones. And of course, the ultimate question is which phone to get at the end of this video. For me, to be honest, if you want to go for the crazy specs, you want to go for the best camera, the best display, best speakers, the best phone experience, definitely the S23 Ultra would be the better kick for you. Maybe you want to go for the S23 Plus if you do not want to use the S Pen. But overall, I think this phone is one of the best phones here in 2023, to be honest, in my opinion. But of course, if you guys want to save money, you want to still get crazy amount of specs, I think this is where the POCO F5 does come to shine. Yes, you do get some corners that are cut with the build material, with the cameras, with the display and the speakers, which is a little bit disappointing. But overall, it still gives you a full package phone, which I absolutely do love with this POCO F series phones. But of course, we can't forget with the OnePlus 11, it still gives you a very solid approach, and at this price point, about 3k ringgit Malaysia, it puts it at a very tricky experience here. It's not the best, but it still gives you very good camera setup, very good display, very good speakers, and in case if you just do not want to use like the S Pen and all that, I think this phone here is still a very good choice. Of course, these are just my thoughts and my opinions. Do share yours, and of course, if you have any questions, leave it in the comment section down below, and of course, check it out. Of course, if you guys did enjoy this video and of course want to see more of this, do click the like and smash the subscribe button down below for more videos like this in the future. And of course, if you want to follow me on my socials, you can do so on my Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and here on YouTube, and Dr. Hammerstack. And I'll see you guys in the next one.